Look at your palm, not as a skeptic, not as a believer, but simply as someone curious about who they really are. Amid the delicate grooves and lines etched by time and motion, there may be something that stands out. A bold letter M, formed by the crossing of your lifelines, or a slender crescent moon gently nestled in the curve of your palm. You might have never noticed it before, or perhaps you've always wondered if it meant something. And now, you're here. Not by chance, but by resonance. You see, not everyone carries these signs. Only a small percentage of people have a clearly marked M or a visible crescent moon. But even fewer truly understand what they signify. These are not random patterns. These are whispers from something deeper. Messages encoded in flesh and form, suggesting that your life was never meant to follow the ordinary script. This isn't superstition. It's not fortune-telling. It's the beginning of a long-forgotten language, one spoken by your body, your experiences, your soul. These symbols have echoed through ancient wisdoms, from Buddhist monks to tribal shamans. They were seen as evidence of a heightened spirit, a soul on the verge of breakthrough, someone not just living, but remembering. Maybe you've always felt a little out of place, a bit too emotional, a bit too quiet, a bit too tuned in to something others don't seem to notice. Perhaps you've been through more than most, heartbreaks that cut deeper, betrayals that linger longer, a loneliness that no one else seems to see. And yet, you carry on, with quiet strength, with a knowing you couldn't explain. If any of that sounds familiar, then this video was made for you. Not to convince you, but to confirm what you've always felt in your bones. That your life has meaning, that your pain has purpose, that your palm holds more than skin. It holds memory, power, and the story of a soul that has walked many lifetimes to get here. Let's begin. Part 1. You were never ordinary. From the moment we're born, the world begins to shape us. Our names, our roles, our limits, all handed to us before we even learn to speak. But some people never quite fit into the mold. They feel things deeper, they question earlier, they hurt longer, and even when they try their best to act normal, a quiet voice inside keeps whispering, "You are different." If you found a bold letter M or subtle crescent moon nestled in your palm, you may already know this difference. You've always sensed there was more meaning behind the chaos, more depth behind your tears, more reason behind your loneliness. These palm markings, found in only a small percentage of people, are not predictions. They're reminders. Reminders that your life has never been random, that what felt like endless pain was actually preparation, that your wounds weren't just scars, they were openings for something greater to come through. People like you, those with these signs, tend to live intense emotional lives. Relationships are rarely casual. Disappointments cut sharply. You might have been betrayed by the one you trusted most, or loved someone who couldn't love you back with the same sincerity. You've likely stood by people who walked away the moment you needed them. And in that moment of abandonment, you didn't scream, you didn't collapse. You simply stood there, quietly shattered, and kept going. But what most can't see is that your strength was never in surviving, it was in staying kind, staying honest, staying open, even when the world gave you every reason to close. That's what separates those who carry these symbols. You weren't born to win awards, to chase success, or to be validated by others. You were born to awaken, and the awakening, though beautiful, is brutal. It doesn't start with peace. It begins with confusion, loss, restlessness. Your soul pushes against the life you're pretending to be content with. You may find yourself asking, "Why do I feel like something is missing?" even when everything looks fine. That question isn't a problem, it's a sign. It means your deeper self is trying to break through the surface, begging you to stop living someone else's story. Ancient traditions, from the Himalayan monks to Middle Eastern mystics, saw these palm symbols not as magic, but as callings. Not everyone who bears the sign answers the call. Some choose numbness, others drown it in routine, relationships, or addiction. But for those who choose to listen, everything changes. Science may not fully understand this yet, but your body carries wisdom, far older than your brain. Your hands, your heartbeat, your instincts, they're always speaking. The M on your palm isn't a trick of coincidence. The crescent isn't just curvature. These are spiritual fingerprints, coded into your very being to remind you of a promise made before birth. That you would awaken no matter how long it took. And that promise is surfacing now. That's why you're here. That's why this message found you. Your life hasn't been easy, but it's been meaningful. Because behind every loss was a lesson. Behind every betrayal was a boundary you learned to draw. And behind every silence was your soul whispering, "This isn't the end. This is your beginning." And if you've ever asked yourself why you always seem to carry more than others, more emotion, more questions, more hurt, it's because you were never meant to carry anything lightly. You were meant to feel it all, to experience the world, not from the surface, but from the core. Because it's only when you've gone to the deepest parts of your own pain that you can begin to access your highest power. Art 2. The pain that prepared you. If you carry the mark, the M or the crescent moon, then your story has likely been filled with contradictions. You may be someone who gives everything and receives little, someone who brings comfort but carries private storms, someone who smiles often, not because life has been kind, but because you've learned that surviving isn't enough. You were born to transcend. This is not about being better than others. It's about being forged differently. You've walked through fire no one saw. You've had to forgive you no one apologized. You've had to rise after betrayals that should have broken you. And still, somehow, you stayed kind. That, right there, is the mark of someone whose soul remembers more than this lifetime. Because that kind of grace isn't learned, it's remembered. There were times when you felt alone, even in a room full of people. Times when you felt invisible to those you loved most. You tried to shrink yourself to fit into their world, to be less intense, less honest, less deep. But every time you did, your soul would ache. Because you weren't designed for shallow. You weren't designed for noise. You were designed for depth. Your heartbreaks were never meaningless. Each one was an initiation. When you lost the love you thought was forever, you found the strength that was always yours. When your family failed to protect you, you discovered the safety of your own presence. When your friends disappeared, you finally heard your own voice. People with the M or the crescent moon mark often carry generational weight. You may have suffered things you never caused, patterns that repeated in your lineage, abandonment, silence, addiction, emotional absence. Yet somehow, you're the one trying to break the cycle. You're the one who feels the need to heal, not just for yourself, but for all who came before. And yes, the burden is heavy. There are days when it feels unfair. But even in that exhaustion, a whisper always returns. You were chosen because you're strong enough to carry what others could not. Your intuition is sharper than most. You've walked into rooms and felt the energy change. You've sensed lies no one else could see. You've had dreams that turned out to be warnings. And yet, you still doubt yourself. You still ask, what if I'm just being too sensitive? You're not. Sensitivity is a superpower in a world that praises numbness. Your ability to feel is not a weakness. It's your guidance system. It's the soul's way of reminding you, stay open, stay awake. When your life falls apart, and it will, more than once, it's not punishment. It's alignment. It's the removal of what no longer resonates with your spirit. And each time after the collapse, something deeper emerges. A more honest version of you. A more aligned direction. A more sacred silence. You've been through seasons that nearly took you. But here you are, not just surviving, but seeing more clearly, feeling more fully, loving more consciously. And that's not nothing. That's evolution. Art 3. Why you've always felt different. You've tried to blend in. You really have. You said the right things, smiled when expected, and stayed silent when your truth didn't fit the room. You learned how to be agreeable, how to avoid being too much. But deep down, the feeling never left. I don't belong here. That feeling wasn't loneliness. It was misalignment. From an early age, people like you, the ones who carry the M or the crescent moon, are marked by an internal sense of exile. Even among family, even among friends, there's often a sensation of floating above, looking in from the outside, not because you're superior, but because you see things others overlook. You feel undercurrents in conversations. You sense when someone's words don't match their energy. You notice the quiet things, the real things. That sensitivity made childhood confusing. You were told you were too emotional, too quiet, too intense, maybe even too weird. But you weren't any of those things. You were awake in a world that teaches sleep. You're not here to follow rules blindly. You're here to question them, to break ancestral patterns, to challenge systems, to transform inherited pain into healing. That's not just a nice thought, it's a soul contract. You may not remember making it, but your entire life has been shaped by it. You've always felt the weight of something bigger, a mission, a calling, a voice that says, you're here for more. That voice didn't come from ego, it came from memory. The memory of other lives, other lessons, and the unfinished task you return to complete. You're not the black sheep of the family. You are the generational healer. That's why you feel deeply. That's why you question relentlessly. That's why silence comforts you more than noise. That's why the superficial exhausts you. You're here to go deeper. And because of that, you've suffered deeply too. You've tried to numb the ache, maybe with distractions, maybe with relationships, maybe even with achievement. But the ache never left because it wasn't something to escape. It was something to listen to. That longing you feel, it's not for a place. It's for alignment, for a life that fits your soul, for connections that speak your language, for purpose that makes sense of the pain. You're not lost. You're being rerouted. You don't need to force yourself to keep up with others. Let them run toward what they think is success. You are being called to something quieter, but deeper. A path that doesn't look impressive on the outside, but changes everything on the inside. And here's what many forget. Those with the mark don't just feel pain more intensely. They also feel beauty more profoundly. A sunrise can make your chest ache. A piece of music can break you open. A stranger's kindness can move you to tears. That's the gift. You live deeply, and in a world obsessed with distractions, that depth is sacred. So if you've ever wondered why you cry more, why you stay longer, why you can't let go of certain moments, it's because your soul sees more than the eye. You're not weak, you're alive, and aliveness is rare. You don't need to explain yourself to those who don't understand you. Not everyone will see what you see. Not everyone is meant to. But your job was never to convince them. Your job was to honor what you know to be true. Quietly, fiercely, fully. Part 4. The mission hiding in your struggles. There's a reason your path hasn't been easy. You were never here to coast through life untouched. You came here with a mission, and the proof of that mission hides in your most painful moments. People with the M or crescent moon sign are often tested, not through comfort, but through loss, disappointment, silence. Why? Because these are the moments that reveal your real power. Not the kind you show the world, but the kind that gets built in private, in the middle of tears, loneliness, confusion. You weren't sent here to avoid the fire. You were sent here to walk through it and come out transformed. Each wound you've carried was an opening. Each heartbreak, a divine redirection. Even your mistakes were part of the training. Every time you broke down, you were breaking open, making space for something greater to enter. That's why your healing isn't just for you. Your mission isn't loud. It doesn't come with applause. It reveals itself quietly in how you listen, how you stay soft in a hard world, how you keep choosing truth over ease. You weren't meant to lead armies. You were meant to ignite awakenings. In strangers and loved ones, sometimes just with your presence. You might feel like you haven't done enough. that you're still searching for your big purpose. But purpose isn't always a destination. Sometimes it's a vibration. It's what your energy brings into a room. It's the comfort someone feels just sitting near you. It's the hope you offer without saying a word. That's impact. That's mission. Your life isn't measured by titles or trophies. It's measured by the light you carry through darkness. And your light doesn't need to be bright to be real. It just needs to be steady, reliable, quietly unwavering. If you've ever wondered why people seem to come to you with their pain, why you've often felt like the emotional anchor in your relationships, it's not random. They sense your depth. They sense your truth. Even if they don't understand it, they feel it. And sometimes that's all it takes to remind someone else that they can wake up too. But don't mistake that gift for obligation. You're not here to fix everyone. You're not here to carry others' wounds at the expense of your own. Your mission doesn't demand sacrifice, it demands alignment. That means giving from overflow, not emptiness. That means choosing what feels sacred, even if it's quiet. And yes, this path will ask you to let go. You'll lose people who once felt like forever. You'll outgrow places that once felt like home. You'll say goodbye to versions of yourself that were never really you. That's not failure. That's evolution. You don't lose what's meant for your truth. You release what was built on your silence. Each time you step away from what numbs you, you step closer to what heals you. Each time you choose presence over performance, your mission unfolds, and it will feel unfamiliar at first, because it's not the version of success the world sold you. It's the version your soul has been asking for. You'll know you're aligned with your mission, not because everything gets easier, but because everything feels clearer. Even the hard moments come with a sense of meaning. Even the silence feels full. And even when nothing looks different on the outside, you feel different. Steady, centered, awake. That's when you'll realize you were never lost. You were being reshaped, recalled, remembered. Part 5. When you remember who you are. There comes a moment, quiet, unannounced, when everything begins to shift. The weight on your chest loosens. The ache behind your eyes softens. You stop running. Not because you've given up, but because you've remembered. You were never lost. This is the moment of awakening. Not the kind that explodes into light, but the kind that rises like a tide inside you. Slowly, silently, unshakably, you begin to see the world differently. The conversations that once drained you now sound hollow. The places you once escaped to feel unfamiliar. The habits that numbed your pain lose their grip. It's not that the world changed. You did. Or rather, you returned. Because awakening isn't becoming something new. It's remembering something ancient, something true, something the noise of the world had buried. You're not here to prove anything. You are not here to hustle your soul into exhaustion. You are here to live with presence, with clarity, with courage. When you carry the M or the crescent moon, your soul has likely walked many lifetimes. You've loved and lost, fallen and risen, fought and surrendered. And now, in this lifetime, you're nearing completion. You're not here to begin again. You're here to bring it full circle. That's why the last few years may have felt farther than anything before. Because when the soul approaches the final layer of awakening, life tests your deepest attachments. It strips away the roles, the stories, the masks, and all that's left is you. Raw, whole, real. But this version of you, it doesn't chase. It attracts. It doesn't beg. It invites. It doesn't perform. It simply is. You'll start to notice strange, beautiful signs. Peace where there was once chaos. Kindness from strangers. People entering your life who feel like home. You'll feel less drawn to fixing, more drawn to flowing. You'll see yourself not as broken, but as sacred. Not as behind, but as exactly where you need to be. And when you do, you begin to vibrate differently. The universe responds to frequency, not words. So when your energy shifts, everything else follows. Money flows more easily. Relationships soften. Opportunities align. Not because you forced them, but because you finally aligned with them. That's the real reward of awakening. Not perfection, but peace. A quiet certainty that you no longer need to chase anything, because what is meant for you can now find you. And then, one day, you'll realize something extraordinary. You're no longer afraid. Not of being alone. Not of failing. Not of death. Because you remember, truly remember, that this life was never meant to trap you. It was meant to refine you. You'll know you've fulfilled your mission, not because everything is perfect, but because you feel light, free, grateful, complete. That is the vibration of a soul ready to ascend. And whether that moment comes soon or years from now, you'll meet it with open hands and a peaceful heart, because you'll know, I lived what I came to live. You were never meant to stay asleep. You were meant to awaken, fully, quietly, and deeply. And now that you remember who you are, live it. Not tomorrow, not in secret, but now, with truth, because the world doesn't need your perfection. It needs your presence. If this message found you at the right time, if something stirred in you quietly as you listened, then it wasn't just a video. It was a remembrance. Let this be the moment you stop doubting your path. You are not late. You are not broken. You are awakening. If this spoke to your soul, leave a like to honor the journey. Comment below, where in the world are you watching from? Because I believe there are more of us out there, remembering. And if you haven't already, subscribe. This space was created for those who feel too deeply to settle for the surface. We don't chase the light here, we become it. Thank you for walking this path, even in silence. Until the next awakening.